أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرًا ونذيرًا بين يدي الساعة من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد ومن يعصهما فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي زدني علما سبحان الله وبحمده Subhanallahil Azim. My dear audiences and my dear friends, brothers and sisters, and those who are watching from home and abroad through Facebook, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It is a great pleasure for me to attend this Tafsirul Mahfil, and at the very beginning, at the commencement of this Tafsirul Mahfil, I would like to express my deep gratitude to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying, Alhamdulillah, all praises are for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, in today's Tafsirul Quran Mahfil, we shall have a discussion on verse number 37 from Suratul Hajj. Suratul Hajj is Surah number 22 from the Holy Qur'an. So as usual, at first we shall go to the recitation as well as meaning of this verse number 37 of Suratul Hajj. Then inshallah we shall go to the elaborate discussion. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لن ينال الله لحومها ولا دماؤها ولكن يناله التقوى منكم كذلك سخرها لكم لتكبروا الله على ما هداكم وبشر المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك. I seek refuge, I seek shelter to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the accursed devil, from the accursed shaitan, and I am beginning with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is most merciful, most beneficent. لا ينال الله لحومها ولا دماؤها. In no way the flesh, meat and the blood of your sacrificed animals do not reach to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. And what reaches to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your motto, your purpose, your intention, your inner position of your heart. كذلك سخرها لكم لتكبروا الله على ما هداكم. And you express, declare glory, praise of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has showed you the proper guidance, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the animals within your control. وَبَشِّرِ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. O Prophet, give this good news for the people who are good doers, for the people who are pious. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said the truth, and His prophets and messengers have also said the truth, and we are among the witnesses. All praises are for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All praises are for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the greatest. O Allah, bless your Prophet and servant Hajjat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this was the recitation as well as meaning of verse number 37 from Suratul Hajj. The Eidul Adha, the festival of sacrificing animal, is knocking at our door. Inshallah, on the 17th of this month, we shall celebrate Eidul Adha, that means the festival of sacrificing animals. On this day of sacrificing animal, on this day of Eidul Adha, we used to sacrifice animals in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we used to spend a lot of money in order to purchase the sacrificial animals. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly declaring in the Holy Qur'an, in verse number 37, Suratul Hajj, that the flesh, the meat, or the blood of the sacrificial animals do not reach to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your intention, your inner purpose, your inner motto, your aim only reaches to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means we used to sacrifice animals on the festival of sacrificing animals, on the festival of Eidul Adha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only sees our purpose, our aim, our intention. Whether we are sacrificing animals in order to earn name and fame, nauzubillahi min zalik. Whether we are sacrificing animals for the purpose of eating meat, nauzubillahi min zalik. The actual aim, actual purpose, actual motto of sacrificing animals will have to be for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we can sacrifice the animals only for the purpose of pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that sacrificing animals will help us. Otherwise, sacrificing animals will be for no importance for us. In all the worships of Islam, in all the ibadat, we used to say ibadat, in all the worships, ibadat of Islam, oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directly related. As we know, oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Tawheed. Ma at-Tawheedu? At-Tawheedu imanun bi ilahi wahid. What is oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is having faith on only one creator, and He is Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Tawheed is the main theme. Tawheed is the substance. Oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the main lesson of Islam. And in all the worships of Islam, oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directly related. So, being a Muslim, we must always keep it in our mind that we shall do all the worships only for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for no other reason. Only our aim will be the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for no one else. Now inshallah, and in this verse number 37, the word ittiqaun ittiqaun has been used. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has categorically said in this verse, وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. Only your intention, your inner position is being seen, being perused by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ittiqaun, fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before doing any worship for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our aim will be, our motto will be, our purpose will be only for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for no one else. If we offer worship only for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that worship, that ibadat will be helpful for us both here and hereafter, inshallah. Now inshallah, we shall go to the other verse, other ayats from the Holy Qur'an in different surahs. Those are relevant in today's tafsir. First relevant ayat is ayat number 183, verse number 183 of Suratul Baqarah. And this is very common ayat. All of us used to know this ayat, this verse. In verse number 183, Suratul Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba alal ladzina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O the believers of Islam, fasting has been made mandatory for you as is it was made mandatory for the earlier followers of Islam, it is hoped that you may earn fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A few months, about 2 months ago, we kept fasting in the month of Ramadan. Our motto was to satisfy Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for no one else. And now we shall sacrifice animal on the festival of sacrificing animal, on the Eidul Adha. And our motto will have to be only for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we sacrifice the animals for any other reason other than pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that sacrificing animal will come for no help for us, both here and hereafter. So this was verse number 183, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has directed the actual believer of Islam to keep fasting, and the reason of keeping fasting was to earn fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to earn piousness, to earn righteousness. That is ittiqa'un. This was verse number 173 from Suratul Baqarah, relevant in today's tafsir. Next relevant verse in today's tafsir is verse number 27 from Suratul Ma'idah. As in verse number 183 Suratul Baqarah, we have found that fasting was made mandatory not only for the Ummah Muhammadi, not only the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was also made mandatory for the followers of earlier prophets and messengers. As Qurbani, sacrifice, we used to sacrifice animals. We are the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But earlier followers of all the prophets and messengers, they were also directed to offer Qurbani, to offer sacrifice. And here in verse number 27, Suratul Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَاتْلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ أَبْنَاءَ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَا قُرْبَانًا فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ قَالَ لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ قَالَ إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. In verse number 27, Suratul Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, O Prophet, tell your followers the news of two sons of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. There was a dispute in between the two sons of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Their names were Habil and Qabil. In order to solve the problem in between the two brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directed them, both the sons of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, to sacrifice in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the sacrifice of Habil was accepted, but the sacrifice of Qabil was not accepted. And Qabil, being angry, told his brother Habil that I shall kill you. Then Hazrat Habil replied, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Habil said, my sacrifice has been granted by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant the sacrifice of those who are pious, who are righteous, who feared Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. So, from this verse, it is crystal clear that there is a deep relationship in between sacrificing animals and fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we do not fear Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, If we are not pious, if we are not righteous, our sacrifice will not be accepted by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as per Suratul, verse number 27, Suratul Ma'idah. Here Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly said that إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. The sacrifice of pious are only accepted. Since Habil was pious, Habil was righteous, his Qurbani, his sacrifice was accepted. And Qabil, who was not pious, who was not righteous, his Qurbani was not accepted. So, before offering Qurbani, before sacrificing animals, we must earn fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We must earn taqwa. And what is taqwa? Taqwa means fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not being sold in the market, that you are a very rich man and you have gone to the market and purchased the taqwa, fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by spending millions of money. Na'uzubillahi min zalik. Taqwa, fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not being sold in the market. We must earn this taqwa, fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by earning knowledge of Qur'an and Hadith. Without earning knowledge, actual knowledge of Qur'an and Hadith, it is not possible for anyone's part to earn fairness, to earn taqwa. So, among us who have decided to sacrifice in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we must try our best before sacrifice to earn fairness for Him, fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for granting our sacrifice for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the precondition that we must be righteous, we must be pious. Next relevant verse in today's tafsir is verse number 162 and 163 of Suratul An'am. We may notice that when on the day of Idul Adha, on the day of sacrificing, on the day of festival of sacrificing animals are being laid down on the ground. And before slaughtering, before sacrificing, we used to recite a dua. Allahumma minka wa ilayka inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin la sharika lah wa bidhalika umirtu wa ana awwalul muslimin Allahumma taqabbal min. Then we recite the names from whose behalf this sacrifice is being given. Then we say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. In the dua of sacrificing animals on the day of Idul Adha, on the day of festival of sacrificing animals, we offered the dua, and there are two ayats of Suratul An'am. Those are in that dua. Here in verse number 162 and 163, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Qul inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin la sharika lah wa bidhalika umirtu wa ana awwalul muslimin. O Prophet, tell the non-believers of Islam, Inna salati wa nusuki, my offer, my prayers, my sacrificing animal, my all the worships, my life, my death is for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the creator of the worlds. La sharika la. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have any partner. Wa bizalika umiritu, and I have been directed to say the so. Wa ana awwalul muslimin, and I am the first among the Muslims. I am the first among those who have submitted their wills. So, in the dua of sacrificing animal, we are declaring oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I said, all the worships of Islam is directly related with Tawheed, with oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So during the day of Eidul Adha, we used to sacrifice animal and we used to declare oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. So this was verse number 162 and 163, Suratul An'am, relevant in today's tafsir. As I said, ittaqaun, taqwa. Fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Righteousness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Piousness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the main motto, main substance of Islam. Next relevant verse in today's tafsir is verse number 26, Suratul A'raf. As I said, taqwa, ittaqawun. And here in verse number 26, Suratul A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya bani Adam qad anzalna alaykum libasa yuwari sawatikum warisha wa libasu taqwa zalika khair zalika min ayatillahi la'allahum yazakkarun. Oh people, oh the sons of Adam alayhi salam, I have sent dresses for you, garments for you, so that you cover your private parts and you may show people the beauty. And the best garment, best dress is the dress of taqwa, dress of fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here in Tafsir Jalalain, the Mufassirin has narrated there are three types of garments. First garment we used to wear, first dress we used to wear in order to save our private parts. And second garment is, we used to wear garments, we used to wear dresses in order to show our beauty. And thirdly, in Tafsir Jalalain, it has come, the best dress, the best garment for an actual believer of Islam is the garments of fairness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Qur'an has said, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. And these garments of fairness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is the best dress, best garment. Allahu Akbar. So, as I said, Tawheed, oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the main teachings of Islam. And ittaqaun, fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, righteousness, piousness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the main substance of Islam. All the worships, all the activities will be only for the satisfaction of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for no one else. And only then we shall be succeeded. Next relevant verse in today's tafsir is verse number 13 from Suratul Hujurat. In verse number 13, Suratul Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Suratul Hujurat is surah number 49 in the Holy Qur'an. Here Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min zakarin wa untha وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ سُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. O the people of the world, obviously I have created you. I have created you from one male and one female. That is from Adam al-Islam and mother Hawa al-Islam. And I have made tribes, nations among you, so that you may introduce yourself with one another. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And this is the relevant. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Among the people, among the Muslims, among the actual believers of Islam, he is the most respected to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who fears Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala most. Inna Allah alimun khabir. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise and He knows everything. So, you are very handsome, good looking. It is immaterial to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are from a respected family. It is immaterial to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are very wealthy. Your father is very rich. You are also very rich. It is immaterial to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only sees your inner position. How much do you fear Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How much fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is lying in your heart? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only sees this. So this was verse number 13 from Suratul Hujurat, where Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has categorically stated that to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only sees our inner position, our intention, whether we are doing everything for the satisfaction of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or we are doing all the worships to have name and fame in the world. Our motto will be, before offering any worship, our motto will be, our purpose will be, our intention will be for the satisfaction of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for no one else. And only then that worship will be benefited for us. We will be benefited from that worship, from that ibadat. Otherwise, there will be no benefit for us. Now, relevant verse in today's tafsir is verse number 16 from Suratul Qaf. In Suratul Qaf, verse number 16, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I have created people and I know What is in his heart? What his heart whisper I know, because I am nearer to him than his jugular vein. Jugular vein means the vein which is on our neck. It is so nearer to us. But Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is saying, I am nearer to you than your jugular vein. Allahu Akbar. So being a Muslim, being an actual believer of Islam, we must have belief that Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is watching our all the activities. All the activities in this world are being seen, being watched, being perused by Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala from the Arush Azim. And in forward we shall find a verse number 10 to 12 of Suratul Infitor. In verse number 10 to 12, Suratul Infitor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ كِرَامًا كَاتِبِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. We are being seen by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the Arush Azim. And besides that, there are two angels. One angel is on our right side, another angel is on our left side. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in verse number 10, 11 and 12, Suratul Infitor, that وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ. I have appointed God to each and every person. Kiraman katibin, two angels. The angel who used to write down our good deeds, he has been defined, introduced with us by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying Kiraman katibin, respected writer. And another angel who is on our left, and this angel on our left used to record our misdeeds. And he has also been introduced with us by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Kiraman Katibin, respected writer. So, dear viewers, whenever we are all alone, we are not alone. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. Two angels are with us. Allahu Akbar. So before doing any misdeeds, we must think of it, that we are not alone. Sometimes in a alone place, lonely place, we think that we are alone. No one is watching us. Nauzubillahi min zalik. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us, and two angels are with us. Next relevant verse in today's tafsir, and this will happen when we shall earn fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Taqwa. If we earn taqwa, only then we shall be able to think over these things, that Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. Two angels are with us. And if we do not earn fearness for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we cannot earn taqwa. Next relevant verse in today's tafsir is verse number 56, 57 and 58 of Suratul Zariyat. Here Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ يُطْعِمُونَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينُ وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in verse number 56, Suratul Zariyat, that I have created jinn and insan, jinn and man, only for my worship and for no other reason. Ma uridu minhum min rizq. I do not want from them sustenance. Wama uridu ay yut'imun. And I do not want that they will give food to me. Nauzubillahi min zalik. Inna Allahu ar-Razzaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is the giver of sustenance. All the sustenance are being given by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He is most powerful. So, we sometimes, people become so busy from morning to till midnight in earning money. As we are a financial creature and nothing else. Nauzubillahi min zalik. We have not been sent in this world only to earn money. The motto of sending us by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so that we may earn knowledge of Tawheed, knowledge of oneness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after earning knowledge of Tawheed, we must try to implement the teachings of Tawheed in all the functions, in all the activities of our life. This is the main motto of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for creating us. But in this world, after coming in this world, we have forgotten the actual motto. We are running after money from morning to till midnight. Nauzubillahi min zalik. If we do so, we will be loser in the day of hereafter, on the day of judgment. In the life of hereafter, we will be losers. Now, relevant verse in today's tafsir is verse number 18 from Suratul Hasr. Suratul Hasr. It is surah number 59. Here in verse number 18, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu attaqullaha wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat ligad wattaqullaha innallaha khabirum bima ta'malun. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu attaqullaha. O the believers of Islam, fear Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat ligad. Each and every person must think for what he has sent for tomorrow. Here tomorrow means for the day of judgment. Wattaqullah, fear Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innallaha khabirum bima ta'malun. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything what we are doing here. So being a actual believer of Islam, being an actual believer of Islam, we must always think what we are sending for the life of hereafter. Because in the life of hereafter, we shall find that what we are sending from this world. So, being a Muslim, we must always remember that our tenure of life in this world, it is limited. And this tenure of life in this world will come to an end. And then we shall meet death. And after meeting death, we shall be revived by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to give accounts of our activities, what we are doing here. And being an actual believer of Islam, we must think over it. We must gather capital for the day of judgment. Now inshallah, we shall go with some hadiths. Those are relevant in today's tafsir. First hadith in today's tafsir is, relevant hadith in today's tafsir is, An Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Inna Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum wa amwalikum walaki yanzuru ila qulubikum wa amalikum. Rawahu Muslim. This hadith has been narrated by Hazrat Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu. He is saying that our beloved Prophet has said, Inna Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum wa amwalikum. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at your face, at your assets. Walaki yanzuru ila qulubikum wa amalikum. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at your intention, at your heart, and the deeds what you are doing. Rawahu Muslim. As I said, the day of Idul Adha, the festival of sacrificing animals is knocking at our door. On the day of Idul Adha, we shall sacrifice animals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not see how much money we have spent for purchasing the animal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not see this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will see our intention. Whether we are sacrificing animal for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or any other reason. If we sacrifice animal only for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that will bring good for us and we will be benefited from the Qurbani. Otherwise there will be no benefit for us. Rawahu Muslim. Inna Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum wa amwalikum walaki yanzuru ila qulubikum wa amalikum. Rawahu Muslim. Next hadith in today's tafsir is An Abbasin radhiyallahu anhu qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam zaqa ta'amul iman man radiya billahi rabban wa bil islami dinan wa bi muhammadin rasulan. Rawahul Bukhari wa Muslim. This hadith has been narrated by Hazrat Abbas radhiyallahu anhu, the famous companion of our beloved Prophet. And he said, our beloved Prophet has said, Zaqa ta'amul iman. He has got the actual taste of iman. He has got the actual taste of belief. He has got the actual taste of tawheed. Man radiya billahi rabban, who is satisfied, accepting Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the only one creator. Wa bil islami dinan, and who is satisfied getting Islam as the religion, and who is satisfied becoming the follower of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahu Akbar. Rawahul Bukhari wa Muslim. So being a Muslim, we must be satisfied. We must be proud that we are Muslim. We have accepted Islam. We will be proud that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our only one creator who does not have any partner. And we will be proud to get Islam as our method of life, as our deen. And we will be proud that we are the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rawahul Bukhari wa Muslim. Next relevant hadith in today's tafsir is An Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu qala Anna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam suila ayyul amali afdalu faqala imanun billahi wa rasulihi qila thumma madha qala al jihadu fi sabilillahi qila thumma madha qala hajju mabrurun. Rawahul Bukhari wa Muslim. This hadith has been narrated by Hazrat Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu. He is saying that our beloved Prophet was asked by his companions, Ayyul amali afdalu, who is work, which amal, which deed is the best? Faqal, our beloved Prophet answered, Imanun billahi wa rasulihi. The best deed, the best work, the best function of a man is that he will believe on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Qila, he was then asked, Summa madha, then which deed is important to us after accepting Islam? Qal al jihadu fi sabilillah, going to the jihad. Jihad means struggling for Islam. Jihad means having any attempt for Islam. Qila thumma maza. Then our beloved Prophet was asked, then which is the best deed? Qal Hajj mabrurun. And our beloved Prophet answered, performing Hajj is the best deed. Rawahul Bukhari or Muslim. Last hadith in today's tafsir is An Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu qala qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam man kana lahu sa'atu wa lam yadhi fala yakrabannal musallana. Ibn Majah. Hazrat Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu has narrated this hadith. He is saying that our beloved Prophet has said, those who have capacity to sacrifice for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but on the day of festival of sacrificing animal, he has not sacrificed. Our beloved Prophet has said, he should not come to the Eid congregation. Allahu Akbar. Nauzubillahi min zalik. Ibn Majah. There are some Muslims surrounding us. There are some Muslims on our four corners. They used to do not sacrifice on the Eidul Adha, although they are capable. It is a heinous offense. It is a great sin. And our beloved Prophet was so angry with them that our beloved Prophet said, those who have capacity to sacrifice animal on the day of festival of sacrificing animal, but he does not sacrifice, he should not come to the Eid congregation. Nauzubillahi min zalik. So among us, those who have capacity to sacrifice animal, we must sacrifice animals on the festival of Eidul Adha, on the festival of sacrificing animals. And our motto, our aim, our purpose will be only for the pleasure, for the satisfaction of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for no one else. Now inshallah we shall offer prayer to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before offering prayer, let us recite durood. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma amin. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا. اللهم من أحييته منا فأحيه على الإسلام ومن توفيته منا فتوفه على الإيمان. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربي زدني علما. أستغفر الله. اللهم إني أسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. Oh Allah, some of your servants have been gathered here in this Tafsirul Mahfil. We have discussed from your Holy Qur'an and Sahih Hadith. We have made many mistakes. Oh Allah, please forgive our all mistakes and accept this Tafsirul Mahfil. Oh Allah, forgive our all sins. Oh Allah, increase our sustenance. Oh Allah, save the Muslims of Palestine. Save the Muslims of whole world. Oh Allah, destroy the Bani Israel. Oh Allah, you know what is in our heart. Fulfill our all good desires of our heart. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.